There is a chair in your home that no one sits in anymore. You know the one. It hasn't been moved in years, not because you forgot it was there, because moving it would mean something you're not ready for it to mean. Think about your own house for a second. Is there a spot like that? A cushion still shaped by someone who isn't coming back to it. A side of the table that stays empty on purpose. You didn't decide to keep it that way. It just stayed, and somehow, without a single word, everyone in the house understood the rule. Nobody sits there. Why does a piece of furniture get to hold that much power? It's wood, it's fabric. It has no memory of its own, but you gave it one. And once an object is holding a memory for you, moving it stops being a small decision. It starts to feel like erasing something. The psychologist Fritz Perls built an entire form of therapy around this exact instinct. He called it the empty chair technique. He would sit a client across from an empty seat and ask them to speak to the person who should have been sitting in it. A parent, an ex, a version of themselves from years ago. The chair was never occupied. That was the point. An empty chair, it turns out, can hold a conversation better than a full one ever could. Because nothing interrupts you. Nothing corrects your memory. It just waits. Maybe that's what your chair has been doing this whole time, waiting. Here's the strange part. You probably don't think about it every day. Some mornings you walk right past it without a flicker of feeling. But then, out of nowhere, on some random Tuesday, you catch it out of the corner of your eye and your whole chest tightens. Nothing changed about the chair. Something changed in you. Just for a second, and the chair happened to be standing there when it did. Grief researcher George Bonanno spent decades studying how people actually process loss, not in theory, but in real time, in real homes. And one of his most surprising findings was this. Grief doesn't move in a straight line. It doesn't fade evenly, like a photograph left in the sun. It comes in waves, often triggered by something small and physical, a smell, a song, a chair. The object isn't causing the grief, it's just the door the grief walks back through, whenever it wants. So maybe the chair was never about the chair. Maybe it was never really about the person either. Sit with that for a second. If it was truly about them, wouldn't the chair have stopped mattering by now? Wouldn't time have done its job? But it hasn't, which means the chair is doing something else entirely. It's holding a version of you, the you that existed while they were still in it. The one who laughed at a certain time of night, the one who didn't flinch walking past that spot. That version of you is still in the room somehow, even though you can't quite locate where they went. You didn't lose a person, you lost an audience. Someone who used to witness your ordinary hours, waking up, making coffee, complaining about the same small things every single day. None of that required an explanation when they were there. It just was, and now it has no one to land on. Is that why the chair stays? Not because you're still grieving them, but because moving it would mean admitting no one is watching anymore. A chair, a coffee mug, a coat hook by the door. She found that people don't attach meaning to objects randomly. They attach it to the objects that were present during repetition, not the big days. The small, boring, everyday ones. That's the cruelest part. It's never the wedding photo that undoes you. It's the mug on the wrong side of the cabinet. So the chair isn't a monument to one big loss. It's a monument to 10,000 small, unremarkable moments that you didn't know you were collecting until they stopped. Now here's the part that's harder to admit. You've done this before, long before this particular chair. You've done it with friendships, with versions of a city you used to live in, with a job you used to hate but somehow still miss. There's always a chair somewhere, a spot you've quietly reserved for someone or something that isn't coming back. Just in case. What does that say about you? Not that you're stuck. That you're loyal to a version of a life you're not entirely ready to let go of yet. There's a difference. Being stuck implies you can't move forward. But you have moved forward. In almost every other room of your life. You just left this one chair exactly where it was. Like a small act of respect towards something that mattered. Maybe that's not weakness. Maybe that's memory doing its actual job. But here's the question worth sitting with. At what point does honoring something quietly turn into avoiding it? At what point does the chair stop being a tribute and start being a fence? You'd know the difference if you were honest with yourself. One feels like warmth when you look at it. The other feels like a held breath. Which one is yours? You don't have to answer that today. Nobody's asking you to move it tomorrow morning. That's not how this works, and anyone who tells you grief runs on a schedule has never actually lost anything that mattered. But it might be worth noticing next time you walk past it. Whether you're remembering someone, or whether you're just avoiding the version of the room that doesn't include them. Because eventually, someone else will walk into that house. A new person, maybe. A different chapter of your life. And they'll ask, without any weight in their voice at all, why nobody sits there. And you'll have to decide right there, in that ordinary moment, what the honest answer actually is. There's a chair in your home that no one sits in anymore. And maybe it was never about the chair. Maybe it was always about who you become in the room, once it's finally empty enough to sit in yourself.